Hey guys, welcome back to the Bayside Fabrication YouTube channel. Well, as you know, the car runs, and we had a small issue last time with a pinhole in one of the welds on my oil cooler block. And there it is, right where my thumbnail is. You can barely see it. And that little guy was pissing like crazy, and I don't know, probably lost half quart. Not a huge deal, but obviously we can't run the motor when we have oil pissing out of it. So we're gonna resolve this oil pinhole issue right now. I'm gonna get it back together, fire it back up, and make sure there's no leaks. And then once there's no leaks, we have more wiring issues to deal with. And we're just going to kind of chip away at those things. All right guys, let's see if we fix this oil leak. It's now your job to keep an eye out for any leaks. Well, I fire this thing up real quick. I think I might have oil coming from the oil pressure sensor threads here. Let me check this out. Dang it. These are the joys of a new build. All right guys, so I just fired it up and that resolved the oil cooler adapter issue. However, I do still have a drip, and it's coming from the Vano solenoid area here. All right, there's definitely a leak between the gasket there. So I'm just gonna pop, I think I have a spare one from the other motor, so I'm just gonna pop this one off. I'm gonna find the other one first. See if I can just swap the gasket out real quick. Good news is we fixed our major leak, and either way, this won't prohibit us from doing anything. However, I just don't like oil leaks. All right, I was able to locate the spare that I had and pull off the gasket here. So we're just gonna go up. Of course, I dropped it on the ground in the metal shavings. So we'll clean this again and pop that one off, throw this one on. This is definitely a stiff and probably OEM gasket, so we'll hope that it works, and then we'll definitely replace this for the built motor, obviously. So let's swap this over and see if that fixes our oil leak. All right, we got the car running, we got the oil leaks fixed, and I have it rolled out. Now this is one thing that is absolutely not necessary to get this thing running, but I gotta wash this real quick. This is just, I mean, for the 10 minutes that it takes, definitely deserves it. Guys, here it is looking good. I just stuffed some 3.5-inch tubes in there just for aesthetics, just to get an idea of what it could look like, but I'm loving it, man. Absolutely love this color. All right, so the next thing we're tackling here is just a bunch of odds and ends. Luke came by yesterday, actually, and we did some rewiring on the fuel pumps and the ignition and things like that. I was able to get the ignition to fire from the key on position. We were able to source power for when the key's in the second accessory position to fire off the fuel pumps. And I just want to explain to you how we're running these fuel pumps right now. So we are running it where the computer is dictating when to run the fuel pumps. And by that I mean, when the key's in the accessory on position before you start it, the fuel pump's primed for 5 seconds, then shut off until the car is started. And then once the car is started, the fuel pumps kick back on. Now, we have 3 fuel pumps in this car right now. The first fuel pump is the stock in-tank fuel pump, and that's gonna act as our lifter pump to our surge tank here. And so when the key's in the on position and the car is just idling and running, you know, normally, that pump is feeding this tank, And this pump right here is feeding the fuel rail. Now this third pump here is our pretty much our auxiliary pump. So I just installed a check valve on this today, and that check valve prevents the fuel from coming back because these two pumps here go to the fuel rail, and if there's no check valve here, when this fuel pump is pumping, it could technically try to pump fuel back through this pump here, and we don't want that. So I installed a check valve on that, so that takes care of that issue. And this fuel pump, the third fuel pump here, we have that connected to the computer, and we can tell that fuel pump to turn on whenever we want. So there's no point in running all three fuel pumps all the time. The motor doesn't need that third fuel pump when we're just cruising around. So essentially what we're gonna do is stage that third fuel pump to kick on really whenever we need it to. And we can make it kick on by manifold pressure. We can make it kick on by, I don't know, engine RPM. We can make it kick on whenever we want, however we want with the Haltech system. So that's pretty cool. So we have it all wired and set up like that. So that's how that's gonna work. The battery's disconnected right now just because I am still buttoning up a few things, but I also have the starter motor now properly wired to the key. So it starts like a normal car when you turn the key in the on position, or from accessory to on, turns the motor over, fires right up. If all goes well, our fuel system just primed up. Let's see. So I got to figure out how to configure this dash too. There's all sorts of stuff on here. Let's see. So I really want to see coolant temp and oil pressure on this deal. Also looks like the alternator's charging as well. When I turned it on, it went from 11.5 volts to 13.5, so alternator works. Okay. I just noticed some oil coming from our power steering pump, so we might have to put that. Oh, you know why? Because it's creating pressure here. That's why. So our power steering pump's creating pressure, and I took the tank out, but obviously it's creating pressure in here and pushing it through the lines and blowing out there. So all this stuff, guys, is, this is kind of part of the deal. But I'm just gonna put coolant in it now. I'll get the power steering reservoir back on, and then we'll handle it from there. Okay. Now we begin trying to fill up this cooling system, see what happens. All right, guys, so it turns out I did have a leak on, I can't even see it, on the back side of the intake manifold. I bought one of those cheap, it's like a K2 knockoff off of Amazon or eBay or something, and yeah, that's leaking. So I got to pull the coil mount off and try to access it and see where it's leaking, how it's leaking. Maybe I just didn't tighten a bolt, or maybe the whole thing's junk and has to come off. Either way, it kind of sucks. But it drank about 3 gallons of coolant so far, and nothing else is leaking, so that's good news. Yeah, I'll just address this and take it from there. Hard to see, but this housing right here, it's leaking. But it's leaking like just not under pressure or anything. It's just leaking when there's water in it. So I'm gonna pull that thing off, and it's gonna be a pain, but gotta do what we gotta do, right? All right, well, finally I got to the root of the problem, and for some reason I didn't put sealer on the back side of that flange. I think it was one of those things where I had it test fit, and I was going to, okay, this is gonna come off again, and I just forgot about it, because obviously if I was gonna put that on there for the last time, I would have. So I know I had to weld the fitting on and stuff, so I probably just welded the fitting on, test fit it, and then forgot about it. So thankfully it's not that big of a deal. I just have to put some sealer around it, put it back on to create the seal for that flange, and then it should be good. So I'm just gonna let it dry out for a minute right now, clean the surfaces, get some sealer on there, and fingers crossed that that will take care of it. All right, guys, we got Luke back in the house today, and I got the cooling issue resolved, I believe. It's not leaking under just static, water being in there. So I have it topped off, and we're gonna fire it up shortly and see if the system bleeds itself out and, top it off, and hopefully it'll just be a quick process. This is the highest point in the system. So hopefully, we'll find out and make sure that the water pump is running and that the thermostat's opening and all that fun stuff. So just one part of the puzzle here that we can eliminate. Okay. Okay, fire back up. Okay. I'm sure there's a big old air bubble. All right, let's clear this place out a little bit. All right, guys, we're here. We have a really high idle issue, and we're just trying to resolve it. I doubt it's a vacuum leak, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. So we're now checking the timing, make sure it's at top dead center, and we're just kind of verifying a few things before we start pulling stuff apart here. We're like on it. Fully got it. I'll fix it. Okay. I should have known that. All right. The pulley ate our timing light. Okay, guys, so we had a little catastrophe with the with our timing light here. The belt ate it, and then we were getting hot 12 volts going into the wheel, and it started sparking and getting all fun on us. So crisis averted. Now we got our ghetto set up here, and all right, Luke, let's try this again.
All right, you ready?
Ready. All right.
That's why you never ever, if somebody ever sends you a map, or if somebody ever, like, that right there is your #1 thing to do for tuning. Just double check the mechanical versus the digital time.
Okay. So can you just explain what happened? You just told me real quick.
Yeah, sure.
What happened? So.
All right. So basically, the software, the digital software doesn't know where the mechanical TDC is. So you can have 10 degrees into your base map or idle or whatever. However, on the mechanical timing side, if you see 15 degrees, it doesn't know that it's 5 degrees advanced or 5 degrees retarded. So basically, you just have
There's
to
no reference point.
Correct.
It could be 180 out, and you could have 40 degrees of timing in it, and it means nothing because it's it
doesn't know.
Right.
It doesn't know the mechanical timing.
Right. So we just referenced the mechanical timing to what was on there, and obviously it was off.
Right.
By
You have to sync it. So if you're commanding, TDC on the ECU, okay, you need to be able to see TDC on the actual pulley.
Okay, awesome. Well, that makes me feel better. I thought we had vacuum leaks. We're gonna start pulling intake manifolds off and all sorts of stuff.
I haven't blipped it yet, so let's see if we can give it some throttle and let's see if it does what we want it to do.
Okay.
So we'll check some things, but hopefully we don't have that issue. But we can pull that off now.
Okay.
It wasn't too far off, it was like 5 degrees off.
5 degrees off? Okay, cool. Oh, throttle cable's not connected. Throttle cable's not connected.
Okay, that's fine. Give it a blend manually with the throttle if you can. I don't know where this leak is coming from.
So it's a leak, you think?
It's either that, or I mean, I've got. If it's lean, it should bring it down. If it's too rich, it should bring it down. But
okay.
It's not.
All right, guys. Luke just took off. He had to go pick up his girlfriend from work. But yeah, he's gonna come back later. But in the meantime, we're riding the struggle bus pretty good. So we've kind of concluded there's a vacuum leak somewhere. Now, we have squirted this whole intake manifold down with brake clean, and we found one small leak that I was able to correct. It was just a small plug that was an oversight, but it's still revving like crazy. So we're thinking there is some sort of vacuum leak in, like, the throttle blade's not closing or all the way or something like that. Even though it appears it is, it's just kind of, there's something off about it. So with all that being said, I have just made a smoke machine. So let me show you what we got. We got a pickle jar. We filled said pickle jar with paper. We have a soldering iron that we stuffed in there. We have a vacuum pump. So this is the vacuum side, and then this is the exhaust side. So it's gonna pump a nice steady stream of air out. And then the idea is that once this element heats up, it'll just start slowly smoking the paper, and then we'll have smoke coming out of here. So it's all stuff I had around the house. I built this in about 4 minutes, and I think it's gonna work. So I'm going to smoke test this intake manifold and see if there's anything obvious. I'm just gonna go through the blow-off valve vacuum port, and that should tell us, I mean, we'll obviously fill it up with smoke, and if smoke comes out the throttle body, then we know the throttle body is the issue. If smoke comes out somewhere else that we don't even know about, then that will tell us that's the issue. So that's what I'm gonna do now. And yeah, I just wanted to share the updates with you. It's just been kind of frustrating. Like, it's really hard to figure out what's going on with this stupid thing. So I'm gonna smoke test this right now and see if I can just find out what's going on here. In summary here, our engine RPMs are 1700 RPMs, and we can't get them any lower. And you know, we put a piece of cardboard on the inlet of the throttle body, and the car won't stall. So that tells us that there is a leak coming from somewhere else. So there's other air coming into the intake manifold, and we just can't figure out where it is. So I'm gonna smoke test this now, and I'll be back with you guys with the results. All right, we're getting ready to fire up our smoke kit here. I can already see smoke coming right out the throttle body. Kind of just as we thought. And a lot of it. So that's with the throttle body closed. You guys see the smoke's just pouring out of it. And that is definitely the problem. Now what I'm gonna do is block this off with tape and see if there's any other vacuum leaks anywhere on this intake manifold. Hopefully it's just this, because this just pops right off and we don't have to pull the intake manifold off. That's disappointing. K-tuned 90mm throttle body just leaks like crazy, so I'll see if there's any kind of adjustments or something I can do on that, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Let me check the rest of the intake while we're here. All right, guys. Well, so far, this is the main culprit that I see. and you're probably not gonna be able to see it. Actually, there you go. Can you see that? Right in the edge there? Very hard to see. I'm trying to hold it up to the light so you can see it. But anyways, there is apparently enough gap around this throttle body blade where it's just allowing too much air in. So I'm going to double check the intake manifold for any other minor vacuum leaks, because you know that doesn't seem like enough to really do anything, but obviously it is. And like I said, I'll check the rest of the intake manifold for other leaks, and if there's no other leaks, then I mean this has to be it. So my plan now is to just pull this throttle body blade off and just see if I can you know, sand it a little bit. Maybe there's like a little burr or something on it, but it also kind of gets stuck at full lock. Like if you crank it down really hard at full lock, it kind of gets stuck, and this thing should not do that. So I'm just gonna try to tweak this a little bit, sand it, file it, whatever, and just see if I can get this to seal a little better. Okay guys, so I think we're coming to some sort of resolution. And we think it's mainly with the throttle body blade. Okay guys, well, it's been a pretty challenging day. So the end result is that we had a vacuum leak through the throttle body. Now the throttle body plate, when it closed, there was gaps in that you could see air. I actually filled it with a little bit of water. Water could flow through it. So that was an issue. However, once I sanded that down just by hand, just kind of maybe took out any high spots or things like that, I just simply put it back in and it ran about 600-700 RPM lower. So that was a great sign. However, it still won't go below like 1100 RPM, which means there's still vacuum leaks somewhere. So at this point, I had Luke start the car. I went and put brake cleaner on the intake manifold runners where it meets the head, and he was noticing a dramatic fuel increase from the wideband, which leads us to believe that the gasket isn't sealing between the head and the intake manifold. It's probably because when I welded the intake manifold together, that I had it bolted to this table here, which is 1-inch thick steel, but it still probably kind of did a little whoop-de-doo or something, and the gasket wasn't able to take up the difference. So that's what I'm leaning towards. Either way, I'm gonna have to pull the intake manifold off, which kind of sucks, but we gotta do what we gotta do. Because the reality is, when that throttle body's closed, the engine should stall. So we should be able to adjust the idle by the set screw that is on the throttle body itself. So that's kind of where we're at. So I'm just going to, the engine's 200 degrees right now. Oh, that's another thing. There's, I think, a huge bubble in the system somewhere. So the engine's getting hot and, you know, all that. So we still have a lot of that to deal with. And long story short is I'm done for the day. And it's just one of these things where I wasn't expecting this many issues. I knew there was going to be something, but to have these coolant leaks, the oil leaks, vacuum leaks, I'm just, you know, not too happy with myself as far as everything went. I was convinced that I had everything like buttoned down and super solid, but obviously, you know, when you're building your own intake manifolds and building your own turbo kits and building everything yourself, you're going to have problems. So there's something to be said about it, but there's also something to be said about, you know, buying stuff off the shelf that's proven is also pretty nice. However, the K24 throttle body that I used obviously needed some work. So, I mean, I don't know, I guess it could just happen to anybody. I'm not trying to point fingers or place blame, but I definitely blame myself for 99.999% of all the things that have happened so far. So that's where I'm at, guys. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I think I'm gonna sign off for this one and let this motor cool down. The shop's a freaking disaster, and I'm just gonna get cleaned up, get the car cooled down, get squared away, and just, you know, fix what we need to fix and make this right. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we're gonna be ripping soon, I promise. We're getting close. The motor runs awesome, And yeah, there's no reason why this isn't going to be a certified ripper. So we'll see you on the next one, guys. Thanks a lot.